Most people feel stuck and isolated because they avoid the hard conversations that can bring healing. On Let's Get Real with Gianna, we tackle life's challenges like motherhood, mental health, and relationships so you can break free, find healing, and move forward. Because in order to heal, we have to get real. So pull up a chair and let's dive in. So the next part of your story that I want to talk about is what made you leave, because breaking free from a narcissistic relationship is incredibly difficult. They just suck you in. It's like a vortex. What was the catalyst that made you decide to leave?
Well, I had all of these gut intuition moments throughout the relationship, and I kept confusing myself and being like, no, that's not true. He's not really doing that. Is he looking at these things? No, not really. And then one night it just all came out in front of me, like the evidence, the proof. There was no hiding anymore, and there was no questioning because I saw it with my own eyes. And that was the breaking point. And I think the Lord is so generous in that way, because although it was really painful to experience that night and the things that he had been deceptive about and lying to me about, I think the Lord was really wanting me to see it and was like, I don't want you to go through this relationship anymore and not know what's actually going on. Like, I'm so loving that I'm going to let you see what is happening behind closed doors when you're not around.
Yeah.
And that really was the moment where I was like, okay, I see it for what it is. He is in fact lying, and I don't want to be a part of this anymore.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's so good, because a lot of times, right, it's like them covering their tracks. So it's having this intuition or seeing a little piece of evidence and then bringing it to them and asking them the question, and then he'll deny it or tell you you're crazy. And they're really, really, really good at hiding. And so it's like, then finally, when the things that you knew and your gut, like, again, I just keep coming back to this, our gut and the intuition that we have. You knew that this was like these pieces of the puzzle, like there's this evidence here and there, like I'm onto something. I know something's off, like, but I smell smoke, but I don't see the fire yet. And then you finally got to the place of like, oh no, you didn't cover up your tracks. Yep. I caught you, and I saw all of this in front of me, and then it's like stringing together the pieces of the puzzle and seeing the big picture of like, I knew, and now I'm seeing the fire.
Yeah, because in the moments throughout the relationship when I would bring it up, and I had this gut feeling with a lot of things, whether it be women or porn or just like drinking and drugs, he would tell me, he's like, you're trying to make me feel like a bad boyfriend. You are going out of your way to hurt me. And then I would be like, I can't believe I thought that of him. Like, of course you wouldn't do that to me. Okay, never mind. My gut is wrong. And so that night, every single thing I was questioning came out to be true. And it was, from women to porn to drinking, like the evidence was all there that night. And to finally be like, oh, I can trust myself. It was this release of,
oh my gosh,
of I wasn't crazy.
Yep. You're not crazy. You knew. And here it is. And it was to the point, like, no matter what he said or did, it's like all your words fall flat. I don't believe it anymore. And I'm even thinking of, because like coming back to that cycle, right? So idealization, devaluing, discard, thinking towards the tail end, it's like he kind of had this sense, because you were like getting stronger and more like, hey, I will confront you towards the end of it, where then he started looking for ways out of like this discard, right? Like showing up to bars that he knew, he shouldn't be there, or looking at certain women's pages or things like that, right? So it's like right before this came to an end and it came to a head, really.
Yeah.
There were those signs there of him like 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah, and I would say one of the things I did was just, hey, can I see your Safari? Very simple question that became a really heated argument. And him refusing to give me his phone And eventually I got it and I was like, I'm going to look, like, I want to see what your history is, because now this is really sketch that you're responding this way. And the only reason was him and I were in a committed relationship, and he had been held accountable by a pastor for not watching things. And I wanted to know if he had been lying to me or not. And that's when I remember that specific day, he made me feel so crazy that I asked that question. And it was wrong of me to like look at his phone. But that right there, it's like, okay, well, there is no trust in that relationship, really.
Yeah.
Then if I can't ask and you're not willing to give me your phone.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And you, like, again, knowing it's just this brainwashing thing that happens. It's the brainwashing, second guessing, doubting, all of that and then the belief, like, I guess I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But then finally, and like you said, having this moment and it was more than a moment, like it lasted longer than that, but this, like, all this coming together and be like, I'm not crazy. And I knew, and making sense of his behaviors and responses, even in this example, right?
Yeah.
For many people, narcissists try to dominate and control, which make it really hard to leave, like we've talked about. Did you face that when you were trying to leave and get out? And if so, how did you navigate that?
Well, that night was the end of our relationship, but before it was really over, I found myself begging him to stay in the relationship, and I blamed myself for what had gone on that night, and that it was my fault, and I'm so sorry, and repetitively apologizing. And then after about an hour after that phone call, I had a call with our other sister, who I told her what happened, and she was able to, like, kind of pull me out of the fog for a moment and be honest and say, this is not your fault. You absolutely need to leave this guy, and this is not okay that he did this to you. And then calling him back and saying, yeah, like, I don't think we should be together. This is the right decision. And then him trying to suck me back in after I said that, because now I wanted to leave and I didn't want him. And it was really hard in that moment, particularly, to end it. And I think I struggled from then until the next probably 6 months of, like, going back and forth in my mind if that was the right decision, and do I go back to him, do I not?
Yes. Yeah, because even I think about, like, the aftermath. It's the after effects. Like, a bomb goes off, or a grenade goes off, right? And with a grenade going off, you get affected. There's glass, there's, all these cuts that you have, and you're left with having to pick up the pieces and pull the glass out and figure, there's just the after effects of having this happen. So I think it's really helpful for even you to share, like, for 6 months, it was this going back and forth and working through, like, the second guessing and question, like, was this right? How to make sense of it, because it's muddied with his narrative and so much of his lies and the manipulation of twisting things. And I think that's where this type of abuse is so destructive, because it would have been so easy for you to go back. It would have been so easy had you not been so intentional in seeking out the healing you needed.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I want to hear a little bit more of, what happened after the relationship ended between you and him. You kind of touched on that, but, like, did he try to love bomb you again or regain control in other ways?
Yeah. So about 3 weeks after that night with the breakup, I was in no contact, and it wasn't until I think it was 3 or 4 days after the breakup that my roommate had used the word narcissism to describe him. And then you used this word narcissism. And you guys said that within a couple hours of each other. And I really reflected and was like, was he a narcissist? And that night I did a really deep dive on it and kind of just yanked out of this fog of like, oh my gosh, he was. And there was 2 times I texted you in the relationship and asked you, I was like, hey, I think he's a narcissist. Like, what do you think? I feel really bad. I'm even asking you this question. And so I think the first step after the breakup was recognizing it.
Yeah.
And for myself, I needed to do the research and have the knowledge of what it was. Because for my experience, I felt like I was going crazy, and to put almost a label and context to it helped me make sense of what I had just been through.
Right.
And so, and then also going into a support group with you that Friday, and the breakup I think was a Monday, and you were so lovingly and willingly wanting to help me heal and invited me to that specific support group. And that was kind of the catalyst of my healing journey. And then 3 weeks later, I got introduced to a friend who had gone through a narcissistic relationship. And for the sake of privacy, I'll call him Ryan. But he was really my champion. And the first thing he said on our call was, I believe you.
Wow.
The second thing was, it's not your fault.
Whoa.
And he didn't even know my story. He didn't know the guy I had dated. And having people who had experienced that after the breakup was so big. And we were able to use each other for support and text and call and just be able to understand each other's experiences and stories.
Yeah.
And he was the one who was like, you need to absolutely block this person. Like, there needs to be zero contact from here on out. And come to find out, he tried to love bomb me, but because he was blocked, I didn't get the messages. But I did get email from him trying to meet up, trying to explain what really happened, which was his story versus my reality. And then I think you can totally chime in here with you experienced him trying to love bomb me back, because I never met with him, but you did.
Yes. Impromptu. It was completely spontaneous, which I had a feeling at some point I would run into him. I didn't know when. And then the day came.
Didn't you know where you had?
I knew where. Yeah, I even knew where. Because I was
Yeah.
like, I know this is like near his work area. It's one of the few healthy places in Nashville that I love to go to. So it's like, and he's into health and all, like, food wise. And so I was like, I'm sure that I'll like meet him at some point. Just being honest.
It's just so prophetic though. But
it is. So I like had this prompting. Like, I knew. I knew I would see him at this location. I had no idea when that would be. And then finally it happened. We made eye contact. I was sitting at a table and he ended up coming over. We just had, it's so funny because I almost like, I didn't black it out. Like, I remember this, like I remember sitting there and it felt like it was probably at least 20 to 30 minutes, but he did most of the talking. So I don't really remember a ton of the details. I just remember asking the Holy Spirit, like, give me the words to say. Because I felt this, like, I was enraged and so angry. But in that conversation with him, he was just like professing his love for you. Like, I love her so much. And it felt like such an act. And then he played the victim and he told, like, did you know she did this and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm sorry. I told him, like, honestly, I think you deserve that. Like, you have zero, you don't even see where you went wrong prior to her responding like that. Like, I don't hear, that's basically where I was telling, like, I don't hear you owning any of your part in this. You're like, yeah.
Which is crazy to think that someone who dated, right? Like, you go to their sibling and then even in that, you can't hide the narcissism. Like, you just said, he played the victim. Like, he loved me, but then played the victim to you to try to win me back.
Yes. And there was zero owning of anything he did. Even when I confronted him and said, like, we won't go into all the details, but like, you were with your ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
And he had nothing to say to that. He didn't acknowledge it or deny it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I know I know what happened and I know you did, but yet even in you making these really poor choices that would end a relationship, you still couldn't own up to what you did. He still couldn't say it, and he fed the victim of how, like, oh, poor me, woe is me, like, she did this and blah. I'm like, how do you not, like, fine, like, I don't know, how do you not take any ownership or say, like, I messed up? And it wasn't any of that. So it felt very love bomby of like, but it's just like, this is all smoke and mirrors. This is all a facade. It's not true. It's not real.
Yeah. Which it's so interesting because the narcissist saying, it's not his fault. And it's something that's so blatant, right? It's like, you clearly did something wrong. Like, you were caught. There's no gray. And I believe that's what you told him.
No
it's
gray.
Black and white.
Yeah.
And then me as the receiver of what he did and the victim of what he did, I was contemplating and trying to believe myself, I'm not in the wrong. I'm not in the wrong. And having to repeat that to myself over and over again. And because I did believe that I'm to blame, I'm at fault. It's always my fault. So it's just that constant battle of like the narcissist versus their supply, right? It's like, I will blame you for everything. I will take the blame, and it's such a hard thing as a survivor of the narcissistic abuse, anyone who's gone through narcissistic abuse, to believe your own story.
Yes, exactly. And even looking at the facts, because I think that's where they play into this, like, that's your truth and your reality. It's like, no, there is the truth. There are facts. There's data. Like, grab hold of the data and the facts. Like, lay it out. This is what it is, and this is what happened. Because when they play into like, well, your truth or your reality or your, like, then they can twist and turn it. And it's like, no, we need to like first gather the facts, gather the data, look at what is actually true, and get a clear picture here. So we can silence that confusion a little bit more, and put an end to the brainwashing. Something I want to kind of elaborate on of what you mentioned is the importance of naming this. And it wasn't until you got out of it and you're like, okay, what did I just go through? Who am I dealing with? Naming this person, he's a narcissist, is so helpful, because what we don't name, it stays dark, hidden, and in a place of confusion. When we can finally put a name to this, it helps us, like you said, make sense of our experiences and not internalize it or personalize it as like, this is me. It's something with me. It's something wrong with me. It's like, no, it is so important. And it's not to limit the person. It's not to say they could never change or whatever. It's just really important to name our experiences and what we've been through, because of the clarity that comes out of it.
Yes. I think if I didn't name it and researched, I probably would have thought still I'm crazy and it was my fault and I'm to blame. But knowing that so many other people experience this, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I just felt so relieved to know I was like, because it's a serious train wreck. Like, the discard with a narcissist is so harsh, which is why the ending of these relationships, whether it's work or friendships or dating, are so catastrophic and really mess with your mind, because it's really brutal. Like, it's a brutal ending.
It is. And so much of it, it's the narcissistic abuse. It's the brutal ending, and it's so much chaos mentally, like where your world gets flipped upside down and it's really hard to make sense of like accuracy of like, where am I, what's happening, which way is up. It's very disorienting.
Yeah.
And because it's almost like this poison that seeps into your mind, seeps into your brain, and it wreaks havoc on you as a person, on your ability to like accurately perceive life and reality and what's true and all these things. So it's like getting your mind back, it's really quite a process of getting your life back and getting you back to who you were made to be before this like stripping and devaluing happened.
Yeah, like getting back to yourself before the narcissist it's still really challenging. And sometimes I think back to myself before meeting him and I'm like, wow, I was so naive in dating and I really thought men were a lot safer than they are. And post narcissistic abuse, it's kind of like, I need to hide. I don't want to be around anyone. Men are unsafe. They cause this crazy trauma.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is the whole relationship with a narcissist is trauma, but especially the discard. I felt like it felt like an isolated incident of trauma on top of the rest of the relationship.
Right.
So just to validate anyone who's been through it, it is a traumatic experience.
It is.
To date one, to be in a relationship with one, to work with one.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's and I don't want to belittle anybody's experience because they have been belittled themselves and minimize, because this is a big deal. It is a traumatic event. Truly, like, it's called narcissistic abuse, and recovery from that is very hard. And so, yeah, I just don't want to minimize anybody's experience, because if they're in a relationship or have been in a relationship with a narcissist, it's been minimized. It's been dismissed. It's been like they've been told it's something wrong with them, and it's not.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about what has been most helpful, because you shared some of the things that you did, which is really helpful in your journey to get healing. So what has been most helpful in your recovery so far?
Well, biggest thing is being around, like, having a support system. So obviously certain family members was really big, and specifically you and Leah were really great at reminding me this wasn't my fault, because I kept coming back to that as my default. So having a support system, and I believe Dr. Romney has also talked about this, but the people who heal from narcissistic abuse the quickest are typically the ones who have an amazing support group. And I also have a really great community of women who just covered me in prayer, and a Bible study leader who at one point in Bible study said, I just pray, Lord, that he evaporates from this city. And it was amazing. So having people who are literal advocates for you, and not in a way of vengefulness of wanting ill will on them. Like, it's still having like the heart posture of Jesus, and also knowing something was done wrong to someone.
Yes.
The other thing is Facebook groups on covert narcissism. That has really helped me, posting anonymously in the chat and having people who have been through my situation and much, much worse responding and feeling like I'm not alone. I cut out alcohol the day after the breakup and still haven't touched it since. And it's almost been 2 years since then. Just realizing that was a huge part of being contributor in the fog and not seeing these red flags early on, and really putting my health and wellness back. Jackson McKenzie has 2 different books that he talks about narcissism. And in one of them, I believe it's Whole Again, he has a 12-step guide of how to heal from narcissistic abuse. And
oh my gosh.
Meditation, water, walking, vitamins, list of vitamins he advocates for. So I followed his instructions to a T as well.
Oh my gosh. It's so helpful when someone lays out practical steps that you can take to heal from this. So you don't feel like, what do I even do? What's the next step? What's the first thing I do? This is really helpful. Something you mentioned about, with the red flags, I'm wondering now, in other dates you've been on, or like with a future partner, what are some of the red flags that you now notice a lot more easily?
Love bombing, for sure. So if there's an intense infatuation, that's a huge red flag. If it's quick, it's a red flag. If they want to hang out right away and constantly, that's a red flag. Intense like compliments right away, also a red flag to me. And anything that kind of makes my stomach go in butterfly mode and it's this really fast high, I know that's a huge red flag. Anything that's a little bit more stable and boring is kind of what I'm noticing are green flags.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny you say that because I was talking to my therapist the other day, and she said that when people start to get in healthy relationships, they find that it can be fairly boring because the unhealthy ones it's full of drama. It's so chaotic. And so what you just said, it's actually a green flag,
Yes.
right? And it's like our nervous system has to reset and understand. We have to learn what healthy relationships are when we've been so used to dysfunctional, destructive ones.
Yes, yeah. And to add to that, boundaries. And so
So good.
what I've done in the past 2 years to like test out my skills on recognizing narcissism is setting a boundary and saying no early on in the relationship and waiting for their response and how they react, because that tells me everything I need to know. And if they don't respect my boundary and if they have a huge long text to respond back to it, I know that is not a safe relationship to be in.
That is gold. That is gold. Like so helpful and very practical. Like ways, because it is like a trial and error. It's testing. You're not going to know at first. So it's almost like being able to put your little like sensors out and see how it is responded, how they respond to that. What would you tell someone who's just beginning their healing journey after a toxic relationship?
Oh my gosh. Be so gentle and kind with yourself, and it's okay to not feel like yourself right away. Compassion. I had to write a lot of letters to myself and finding empathy for the girl who not only went through that, but in the time going through it, and finding how to love myself again was really the biggest thing. So I think just really gentle, having zero expectations of yourself.
Oh, that's so good. And related to that, this like last question I want to ask you, because I think of someone on this healing journey, and a huge part of what happens, it's being stripped of your value, your worth, like being, again, discarded, devalued. So what would you say helped you to rebuild your sense of self-worth? That someone else would be helpful for someone else?
I think believing your own story of what happened and knowing that your value is not tied to what that person thought of you or still does think of you. Again, a lot of letters for myself had to be written to see the value of myself, or like things that are really good about myself, and having to constantly challenge that. So it's an uphill battle, but and also allowing friends and family that are very safe to speak into you and your value, because sometimes it's challenging to see those things about yourself after being in a narcissistic relationship.
Yeah, gosh, that's so good. Yeah, and part of what's coming to mind is what you said earlier. In pursuit of this, is finding people, at least one person who says, I believe you.
Yes. Oh.
That, like, people who believe you, where you can finally feel seen, validated, like your experiences did indeed happen. And you have a person who can create space for you to share. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Well, Gianna, I am so, so, so glad that you're here. And I am so glad that we got to share your story, because it is really remarkable and one that is just of incredible strength and hope. So I really appreciate you being so open and willing to share as honestly as you have, because I ultimately know that this is going to inspire and encourage anyone who is listening and who's gone through anything similar. So thank you so much for being here. I want to ask too, where could people find you if they want to talk to you more about this? Where could they find you?
Oh, well, Facebook Marketplace. I'm always on there. I don't actually have Instagram. But you can find me on Facebook and message me, and I'll respond. If anyone wants to share their story, would love to hear it.
Yeah, you've been there for other people who have organically reached out. So thanks for sharing where they can find you. It's going to be great. If you're listening to this and feeling stuck, I just want you to know that help is available and healing is possible. You do not have to do this alone. Reach out to a trusted friend, a family member, or a professional who can walk with you through this journey. Your freedom and your healing are worth it. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs it and reach out to me with your thoughts and questions. I would love to continue to have these conversations that bring healing and hope. Thanks for listening to Let's Get Real. If something from today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a conversation. Until next time, remember that in order to heal, we have to get real. Talk to you soon, friend.